Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be in the world. I'm Sarah Jane, and welcome to today's conversation. And I am delighted to be joined by my co-host, as always, Enolia.
Hello.
And our delightful guest, and of course I'm going to say that because I'm going to be very honest, she's my sister. And our delightful guest, Jaki King.
Jaki. Like they can't see the look-alike.
Jaki, welcome.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here with both of you. Yes.
And it's lovely, you know, sort of, actually, and now I've moved my things so I could tell you what was happening a fortnight's time. Today's conversation is about working together, benefits, strengths, and weaknesses. And I think this is really important, you know, not just from a business perspective. I think it's almost from a life perspective. It really is. And we've all worked in business. Jackie's running a doddle, if everyone cares. And so she, you know, I know that that's proving you're working with a lot of people at the moment. And so Jackie's coming in with the perspective. I've worked in business, Enolia's worked in business. We have our own businesses, all of us, because actually what Jackie's doing. So we're obviously coming, but we are coming from our own perspective, our own experiences of that working together. And I think for me, when it came up with this, it was very much about encouraging people to do more of that. And why, for me, I'm encouraging people to do more of that, because I think we all benefit so much more when we do. But Jaki, I know this is a topic that is really close to your heart, as well as mine.
And mine.
And Enolia's, yes, absolutely. But obviously I invited you because I know this is a conversation you and I have had numerous times. And so share a little about and how it works within what you're doing and what your hope is for the future for things as well.
Oh gosh, I mean, it 1,001 different ways. I mean, to me, working together is about collaboration, but it's about not just having the benefit for one person. And I don't think it should be, if there are two parties working together, I don't think it should be just for two people. I think it's that knock-on effect. Have at least a triangle. So it's a benefit of the two people that are working together, but it has a benefit to somebody outside of that as well. So so the field that I work in is in the charity sector within across the UK. You know, there are 150,000 plus charities and even more community groups and organisations. And actually, so often people are trying to work on their own. And they've had a great idea, they've seen a need, and then they almost hug it tight to themselves so often because it's almost somebody else is going to take that away. Whereas I think when you work together and you work in collaboration, you can then provide so much more benefit to people, and you share those resources, that experience you each have, you grow from each other. But I think it's that beginning part of a relationship of working together. What is your why? Why do you want to do it? And if your why is because it's for personal benefit, then I think I'd probably question that. But if your why is because together you're so much stronger, it's that better together, people helping people, etc., then I think that impact for others around you can be so much greater. So I'm a great believer in do it for the right reasons. And if it's just for your own benefit, think again as to why you're doing it.
Enolia.
I so agree. I can't even begin to tell you how much I agree. A matter of fact, it was interesting because I came together with two other entrepreneurs, Linda Tello and Donna. And basically, the three of us actually decided that we are going to form together. And the reason we formed together is that when we looked at it, we all had nonprofits, because I worked in the nonprofit sector as well as on the for-profit sector. But we all had nonprofits. We all had to do marketing. We all had to do all of the things to promote our businesses. And, you know, and we were all aiming for grants. And it's like, this is ridiculous. So what we ended up doing is we found a common denominator. We found a grant. We worked on it together. We marketed together. We worked on the videos together. We did everything together. It made it so much easier than doing it individually. And then the thing about it is that we would check in and get together every once in a while, and then we would replicate. We were replicating the exact same things over and over. Today I had to market and post on social media. So did I. And I spent this much time, and I spent this much time. Why couldn't we collaborate? We saw the synergies in collaborating. Why couldn't we collaborate? And so that one person did the marketing, we're all taken care of, and we rotated it.
Yeah.
You know, we all put our expertise into the grant. You know, we found and carved out parts of the grant where we could all leverage that together. This is important stuff.
Yeah.
And we've been groomed in society to compete against one another. And we've been groomed in society to be jealous of one another and try to outdo one another. And we need to lay that aside. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It does not work. I mean, yes, you may achieve it, but you'll be overworked, overwhelmed, and you get there slower.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with you. And I think, you know, if you go back to the why, and you ask yourself the question as to why the other person is working with you as well. Because I think that there are times when one of the parties may not even realize that their underlying reason is because it's about them and making it easier for them, not the collaborate, you know, that joint.
Yeah, that happens too.
It does happen too. So I think it's about, if you can uncover each other's whys as to why you're doing it and what that impact is and what the change and the benefits and things like that are, I think that can really help to avoid maybe those ones where it was all about one person, not about the collaboration. No matter if there were 10 people in the group, actually there was one person and it was about them and their ego and what they wanted to get out of it, and they ran it. And
yeah, and it happens in every group. It happens.
Definitely.
And also, I'm thinking about it from the perspective of complementary therapists, but I'm not just labeling it for complementary therapists here, because there are groups of people, and it's, oh, but hang on, if I help and work with you, you know, I'm thinking about Gift of Healing TV, which is the platform that we're doing today's conversation on. And it's just like, well, why would I want to promote you? Because you could then take customers away from me. And it's just, yes, but obviously what people have to realize is because of my life experience, because all those years ago I worked for WH Smith's. So yes, I haven't been a complementary therapist all my life. I used to work in a retail outlet, you know, so doing different products. But and I spent 2 years working with children's books. Those 2 years, I raised the profits of that department 2 years running that nobody'd ever done before, when I was 18, 19 stroke 20, when I was a teenager, for crying out loud. And one of the ways I really did that was by saying, if we hadn't got what they were after, what the customer wanted, I said, there's a John Menzies up the road. Try and see whether they've got it. My care was for the customer.
Yes.
Not for the profit margin. If anybody has ever watched Miracle on 34th Street, which is a beautiful film, but that's one of the things that really sticks out there, is that by helping the customer achieve what they wish to achieve, you grow. And literally and I'd already resigned, literally a couple of weeks before I left, I had one of my customers come up to me and say, "You won't ever leave, will you?" That is, and it wasn't, it was the customer service, it was the suggestions, it was, oh, don't buy an encyclopedia for a 10-year-old, which is how old your child is. Buy one for a 12, 13, 14-year-old. They can get so much more out of it. They'll get what they need now, and they can grow into it. And I remember we had the Reader's Digest encyclopedias when we were kids, so we were actually working from adults' books. So, but it's all those little things. By supporting the customer, you actually support your business.
Yeah.
And
I've
by
just
letting
been,
people know there's more out there, that there are people that might be able to help better than you at this precise moment in time. The one thing I gathered from all of this was they will go back to the person that helped them to get what they were looking for, not the people that tried to keep them to themselves.
yeah.
Jackie.
Yeah, I think you're right in it. I mean, I've just been listening to, I adore audiobooks. I'm an audiobook person, partly because I'm dyslexic, but I adore audiobooks. And I've just been listening to an amazing book, which is sort of on the thing, it's called Building a Story Brand. And there's that one, and then there's one called Do Newsletters. There's Start With Why, Simon Sinek. And it's always about other people. It's not about you and your company. It's about what you can do for other people. And we were brought up like that, that it's always about. And actually, if you're supporting other people, if you're working together in ways that support everybody, you actually feel happier inside as well. I think it gives you I think the person who gets the greatest gift is the person who is working for and with other people. But Enolia, I'd like to hear what you're thinking at the moment.
So I'm sitting here thinking about the fact that I'm in collaboration with a couple of different people. And the most important thing to me is the integrity.
Yes.
We can figure out the boundaries. We can figure out how we're going to work.
Yeah.
But the most important thing for me is the integrity, and let's lay the sensitivities aside, because we're figuring out how we're going to work. So we have to figure out each other's boundaries. We have to figure out how to give each other feedback. We're two individuals, and if you're two headstrong individuals, you really have to be able to communicate. Let the emotional state go to the side. Everything is not personal. Okay? And learn how to compromise. And I have a wonderful, wonderful synergy with a couple of the collaborators that I'm working with. We have just found our rhythm. And see, if you go in going that, okay, I'm open, I'll listen to any feedback, I'll adjust. And then there's certain things I want to really stand up for that are important to me. And, I pick and choose my battles, but also, and I want your viewpoints on this, is have an exit strategy. And that might sound funny, but
No.
you know what? There are times when you go the course, you go the partnership to a certain degree, and then what happens is that you're so intertwined that the person who wants to leave or has something else pulling them away feels guilty, feels bad, feels terrible about saying, okay, it's time for me to go, and it's time for me to leave this relationship. And I love the saying that I have, which is that we come into each other's time for a reason and a season.
Yeah.
And when the season's over, let them go.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that, I blame you, I belittle you, I step on you because you want to leave. How could you do this to me? It's not about you. It's about growth. So if you enter into the partnership, understanding that you're both going to grow, you're both going to be there for a reason and a season. And when that season's over, you're going to let each other go, because nothing's forever, then it's a beautiful, beautiful relationship. What are your thoughts?
Well, I agree totally. I think that is the way it is. And I think, sadly, children aren't taught that. Or the majority of children aren't taught that. And because it's about communication. And I think, some of the things that you said just now, they come down to that integrity and that communication. And when you said, almost it's like you let the emotion of it go because it is for that reason and that season. And if you can let that emotion go, and that at the beginning, and it's quite clear at the beginning, then you can actually go, that's fine. And actually wish each other well.
Yes.
Because if you don't wish each other well, there is an energy that stays there that I think can cause negativity and a negative impact in both of your growth if you haven't let those things go. And I always remember doing an amazing visualization with a gentleman called Christopher Howard. And there, oh gosh, I don't know, there are 500 or 600 of us in the room, and he did this visualization about cutting the gold threads of those relationships, the ones that you no longer need, they no longer serve you, you've let them go, but their energy is still holding you back. And if you cut those gold threads and you wish them well, and if you believe in the fact that you might come back in another lifetime and relive these same types of relationships again, actually go, thank you, you've given me my lesson, I now let you go with love, and I honor and respect you, but I'm not doing this again. Sort of thing. I hate to tell you, that's the last time we're doing that one again, because I didn't particularly enjoy it. And I know you're a gift for giving me that experience, but it's not a gift I want to receive again. So let's be very honest. So you can let it go, and you can let it go with a smile, because we both laughed. We all laughed at that then, because it's that truth. But actually being able to do that, let it go with love, but then go, thank goodness for that, you know. And that's sometimes when you're working with people, if you can let the things go with love and cut those strands and wish people well, no animosity, no whatever else, it's so much better.
And do you know what? It isn't just working relationships. It's all sorts of relationships, friendships on every level. If the friendship's over, then wish the other person all the best. Yeah, we've all had breakup of working relationships, friendships, actual full-blown relationships. It's happened for us all. You've got to be very lucky if you've never had anything like that happen to you. But it is that acceptance that, yes, with my second marriage, I was the one that broke it up. I was with the first one as well, to a certain degree. And I broke it up because it certainly wasn't working for me anymore. But I really felt it wasn't working for him. And then when he turns around and says, but I've got everything I ever wanted in my life, and that includes you. And I'm not a thing. I am a person. But I think, but my letting go was because it was really important to be true to me, and at the same time allow him to move on with his life. And so whether it's a business or it's a friendship, it doesn't really matter. It's that, okay, this has run its course, whatever it may be, and it is time for me. And you step into that, it's time for me to move on. I'm sorry if it's not time, you don't think it's time for you to move on at the moment, but I'm doing this because I care, not just for me. I'm doing it because I care for both of us.
And
absolutely.
I think I was just trying to think, you said something just now, Enolia, and I think that it is that thing, going back to the season or the reason and everything else. And in working relationships, it is all about that communication. It's all about setting, you said about, you set those boundaries, have your exit strategy, but know your why when you're going into it. So you know that you're going into it for the right reasons, and that it's beneficial for more than just yourselves. I think working relationships can be so powerful, and collaborating, sharing those tasks and making it easier, which creates a better work-life balance, which creates a better, greater social impact. It creates all of these other benefits, and that, rather than feeling egos and silos. Oh,
yes.
that egos and silos. It's me. I can't do this, and stay away. And you just sort of think, oh, that's not serving anybody. Are you listening to your customers? I had a very interesting conversation just yesterday, actually. And we were talking about something, and I said, it was talking about how we developed our work, and it was about listening to what people really said and what they wanted, not about what we wanted to do and what we wanted to create. And I said, it's about listening to people and letting them know they're heard by saying to them this. And they said, oh, we're trying to get our bosses to understand this. And it was just like, how often does that happen in companies and businesses? That the business is there to serve a clientele, a section of the community or whatever else. But actually, nobody's really listening to what those people want, and is trying to sell and force onto them what they think those people want.
Right. Right. And
Effective,
okay.
yeah, carry on. No, effective collaboration means that you actually start to listen to what they want and then work together to achieve that. Carry on, Enolia, sorry.
Oh, no, 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 no. Don't. That's why you're here. So I just wanted to interject also that, sometimes we think that business relationships when they break up are a terrible thing, but they're not. Sometimes they're a birthing. Sometimes they've run their course. You can see the beauty in it. And sometimes that energy is created so that somebody wants to leave, so that you can grow more. Remember that every time something exits, then that leaves room for growth. And so if we can see the gift in the person leaving versus, you get people who are like, oh, I'm going to sue them. Oh, I'm going to this. Oh, I'm going to that. And what they do is they put in hooks to that person wanting to leave, and they put in this energy, and then maybe that person was supposed to leave because a new partner was coming in and they're going to give you more and a more enriching experience. We have to be able to let go, and that is an art also, letting go. And then the other piece of this where I wanted to go to is, what would you say, or what would both of you say are the key foundations that we should build when we're collaborating? Okay? Because for me, the number one thing is integrity, communication, but also flexibility. Because I've been in scenarios where one person creates drama, it upsets everything. It upsets everything. And you're trying to get a flow and you're trying to get an ease and everything else. So, I like to create like an essence of community. Here's how we're going to work together. Here's what we're going to do together. Here's the foundation of the very thing that we have. And if you have to bring it up 2 or 3 times, then you're stuck in the story. Let's get over it. Let's move through the story. And then let's not create stories around people when facts have not been brought out. So there's such an enriching experience, but you also have to, I don't want to call it parenting, but you have to be able to facilitate and see past the ego and the emotions. If you can see past the ego and emotions and nip it right out. Listen, you both want the same things, but you're both headstrong and neither of you are listening to each other.
Listening. I think listening has got to be a key skill in any partnership, any working together, and actually listening for what is not said, to try and, because sometimes what somebody thinks is the problem is not the problem. But when you I can't think what I was listening to probably this morning actually, and it was something like the 5 whys, and it was that they did the story, and I can't remember all the different facts, and it was the forest being cut down. So why are they being cut down? Because the people are poor. Why are the people?
Why?
Yes, they need money. And why are they poor and they need money? Because somebody is sick and needs to go to the hospital and they can't afford it. And then, well, why can't they afford it? Well, there's not one locally and they have to go somewhere else. Well, why is that? So the solution wasn't to stop the deforestation, wasn't about stopping the deforestation. It was about getting a medical facility in a local community village so that people didn't have to go miles away, and then they could afford it. Therefore, they didn't need the extra money. Therefore, they weren't chopping down the trees. So the solution was nothing to do with the trees. It was to do with the village and what was there in the village. So I think if you've got that why and that ability to go in deeper to discover what the problem is. So you might have, I always remember people talking about when you're working on any project anywhere, you need the 3 people like Walt Disney would have. You would have the dreamer, and then you would have the person who would test everything and make sure and put the practicalities in. And then you would have the naysayer, the person who goes, we can't do this because if you had each of those people, you would actually get that balance in the middle. You would have the dreamer who goes, well, we can do all this. The practical one would go, well, we need to do these steps. And the naysayer would go, be cautious and do this. And you'd find this happy medium and get all the bits in there. So sometimes maybe the working relationships are about what those skills are. What is the language that somebody uses? Are they, is it, I see you? Is it I feel you? I hear you? Is it what's their learning style? And if you've got somebody who can then interpret that and the different ways people speak, you could actually get, because you can all speak English, but if you don't speak in that same language, with I hear, I see, I feel, you can be talking at cross purposes.
It's about trust and listening. Absolutely. The first thing that came to my head, it is about listening, but it is also about that brainstorming, the being able to say, here's an idea, and letting other people contribute to that. The individual who, as a friend of mine always puts it, well, where were you when there was a blank page? The person who puts that initial thought forward, the result may have nothing to do with the initial thought. But if it hadn't been for the initial thought, worked on by everybody in the group, you wouldn't reach the result.
That is, yeah.
But it is also about root cause, going back to what you were saying about sort of individuals and the village. It is but isn't that about health? It hits exactly the same point. It's what is the root cause, not what is the symptom. What is the root cause? So if you can talk, if you can listen, and if you need a speaking stick, then use one. And for anybody who doesn't know what that means, I apologize, but it's some of the tribes, I believe, they actually use this
talking stick. Yes,
talking stick. And there is a stick, and my camera's all up the spell. And if the stick, handed the stick, you may speak. If you do not have the stick, you may not speak.
Yeah.
So you hopefully are listening not to reply, but to understand. And that is the really important thing about, and I know Jackie's just gone into.
Do you know what it is I've gone into?
I don't know. I'm going to let you speak.
It's that thing of, is this what I heard you? I think this is what I heard you just say, because I had a really interesting one recently, and somebody was writing something, their own version of what somebody else had put on a website, and their words and how they interpreted it was very different. And I said, have they used any of those words in there? And they're like, no. So the thing is this happens within the news. Somebody reports on a story in the news, and they use their own set of words, which have a different meaning to the actual words that the person who they're reporting on said. But they're close enough meaning. And then it's this Chinese whispers. And the next person goes, well, did you hear on the news that they said so-and-so did this? And when you get that within a business or a relationship or working or whatever else, that can cause so much damage. Because Enolia, you said something earlier about, what's not knowing the truth behind what something had happened or what somebody had said and whatever else. How often is that? Somebody else says, well, so-and-so did this or whatever else. And when you get to the truth of what it was nothing like that. Their words were different, their tone was different, their everything else. But it's the way somebody's interpreted it or then heard it second or third hand and interpreted it. So communication and integrity truly is key.
And then I was sitting here thinking about it. So I'm going to talk about two different topics. One is team dynamics, okay? Because I'm here and I'm in Africa, and team does not exist. Every person has their own individual way of doing things. This is how they do it. This is the way they do it. And if they work in a team for a hot minute and it doesn't work, they're ready to fall apart and declare, well, I should be able to do this all by myself. And when you're bringing a team together, a group of people together to work, you have to take the time to figure out what the team dynamics, the learning style dynamics are, how to hold people accountable. And I'm talking about this for those people who are looking to venture into partnerships and wanting to work together. First of all, everyone has to be heard. You have to listen to everyone. Their contribution makes them accountable for the work. Hold everyone, the whole team, accountable to success, which means that if one person fails, the whole team fails. right? And if one person succeeds, the whole team succeeds. Therefore, you're not afraid if somebody's smarter than you and has it better and they excel and they shine, you're successful because you supported them to get there. And because the overall team succeeds when one person succeeds. And it doesn't have to be they succeeded, that means I failed. We need to get rid of that mindset. That mindset is so outdated, poor, and capitalistic. It just doesn't work. Okay? So that brings me to the next flip that I have, which is that we have to learn compassionate leadership. It is not about controlling everyone and strong-arming people and flexing your power around people. Because when you do that, who would want to work for you? They work for you out of fear and scarcity instead of working with you out of collaboration and love of what they do. Therefore, not bringing their full-bodied being into what they're doing with joy and pride.
Yeah.
But when we come in with compassionate leadership, I mean, we can be stern without being brutal, demeaning, belittling,
Yeah.
Blaming. All of those things that we love to do because we're afraid to be vulnerable, to own up to our own stuff sometimes and just say, I screwed up. I made a mistake.
Yeah.
So all of that piece, and I'll leave it out there because I know this gets you going, is that compassionate leadership of being able to lead and to have people flourish under your leadership versus dictatorial. And I love teaching that. Go ahead.
I really feel that we almost need to get rid of these words failure and mistake, because there is no such thing as a failure and a mistake if you learn from it and grow from it. But people talk about failures, people talk about mistakes, people talk about impossible, they talk about all these things that they just really don't exist, other than the fact that we've created a translation of these words that is negative. And
I think you're right on that, Sarah. It's the translation of the words. It's not the words themselves. It's the meaning that we have given them through our education. Failure was bad. We were brought up failure was bad, and those things. So, I mean, I've got one of the best little books that I think for anybody ever, The A to Z of Positive Thinking by Neil James. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but in an average size dictionary containing 31,460 words, there are only 1,705 that can be seen to be positive, strong, powerful, and stimulating.
Wow.
That is just over 5% of the words available. Moreover, there are over 3 times as many disempowering, sniping, griping, belittling, and critical negative words. That's 5,890 negatives to 1,705 positives. No wonder it's easier for people to be negative and to communicate. So when you were talking about the way that if somebody within a team spoke and the way they acted and everything else, it's 3 times easier to do something and say something that is negative and belittling. And when you used the word belittling earlier, I'm thinking, I'm sure she must have read this book. And the book itself actually is just all the positive words in it, apart from the beginning and everything else. But it's really interesting when you think about that it's easier to find a negative word than it is a positive word. So to me, we're not statistics. Let's challenge ourselves to find one of those 1,705.
Well, I'm going to tell you a little story because, I grew up in a corporate world and I worked in corporate for 20 plus years. And it was easy to belittle. You made a mistake, it was amplified, it was thrown in your face. You were held accountable for it. You were kind of belittled for it. Not kind of. You were belittled for it. You were demeaned for it. You were held in a different light because you made a mistake. And how dare you make a mistake, right? So you walked around thinking that you had to almost be perfection. You know, there were certain mistakes you could admit as long as it didn't hit the bottom line or have a significant impact. Okay. And then I went to my first Indigenous retreat. And, you know, coming from corporate and never having visited an Indigenous retreat before, okay, and I helped put it together, and it was my first time, and I was so excited. And me being a project manager background, right, it was like, oh, I had my T's crossed, my I's dotted, and I was going to show them how well I was going to do, coming straight from ego. And I went and I was like, okay, time to get the retreat started. We have everybody here. This is what the agenda is going to be, blah, 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 blah. And then, you know, the second in command to my grandmother, who was going to be leading it, you know, because I hadn't introduced her yet, said, can we take a 5-minute break before we get started so people can use the facilities, you know? And we take a 5-minute break, and I go and I run and use the facilities. And she came back and she signaled me over, and she goes, and she whispers in my ear, do you think you're running this? And she said, in the history of all the times I've ever attended an Indigenous retreat, we've never started the retreat like this. And then it dawned on me that my ego had been so big that all I thought was I was going to show people how great I did a job, versus the whole reason I was there was to learn from this woman. And I had just bullied myself in taking charge. And I had tears streaming down my eyes going, absolutely not. I had put my foot in my mouth because this is the very woman I wanted to learn from. And I was like, it's all over now. Now everybody's going to know. Now it's going to be belittled. She was like, you know, pull yourself together. You know, this is her second in command now. Her name was Sandra. Pull yourself together and then come back over, you know. And when I came back over, the first, you know, they're all in circle, and grandmother, the elder, was talking. And I went next to Sandy, who was the one who talked to me. And she whispers in my ear, hold your head up high. Nobody knows anything. Right? So I had beat myself up so badly that, you know, I went in there with my head down. I was waiting for the amplification of you made a mistake thrown in my face, because this is how I had learned from corporate. Right? And then, you know, my elder signals for me to come out of the circle and come over next to her. Right? And I stood next to her, and she lifted me up, and she said something that just engaged me so fully and complimented me, and then proceeded to open up the 4 directions. And I had never been to it. It was the first time I had ever seen it done, and everything. But what I learned right then and at that moment, they never belittled me in front of anyone.
Yeah.
They never said a word. No one even knew anything happened except me.
Yeah.
It was only me amplifying the fact that something had happened. And she lifted me up. She did not step on me further in order to make the point. She lifted me up. And she said, you have nothing. She had whispered in my ear, you have nothing to hold your head down for. Lift your head up. You are a leader. And at that moment, I learned compassionate leadership. And I knew that that's how I wanted to lead.
Yeah.
So I had to share that story.
Oh, absolutely beautiful. I admit I've got tears pricking at my eyes, because that is how it should be. If I'm honest, that's not how our childhood was, and our education. It was belittling. It was scarring, to the fact, I mean, I don't know about you, Sarah, it haunts me to this day, but it gave me the greatest gift of who I didn't want to be, how I didn't want to behave, and how different I wanted to be with other human beings around me, because it doesn't matter who it is. Every single person has value, and every single person, given the right chances and opportunities and everything else, has the ability. They have hidden superpowers within them, because there is something they are so incredible at that they can do that I can't do. They have skills and everything else. And if you can be there to support them in discovering them and bringing them to the fore, then that's the greatest that you can give yourself and them and the people around you and everything else. And I just think when you live in a society where it's like you described within the corporate world, which sadly I would say is the greater part of society, that makes it harder for people to work together, because people are scared of risking failure. They're scared of showing how vulnerable they can be. I was in a meeting yesterday afternoon, and it was really interesting. I wasn't expecting them to bring up the subject of wanting to pay us money for the work we do, because I just do. I'm passionate and I just do. And they brought it up, and they sort of talked about, you know, could I let them know a sort of figure and this, that, and the other. And I went, I'm going to be very honest now. And it was showing the vulnerability. I said, I don't like talking money. I'm a survivor from an abusive marriage, and money is something I find really difficult. I said, my team will go, Jackie, you know, I said, I'm not there yet with talking that. So they said, you've got nothing to apologize for. Thank you for trusting us. And one of the other ones said, we've got a budget here. I'm going to get in contact with you tomorrow. I'll let you know what sort of figures we're thinking about. And then you can put that together in an invoice for us. So I said, I'm so grateful for your support, because actually the second you said it, all I wanted to do was just get under the table. And they went, no, you've been so professional. And, you know, and I was just like, now, a year ago, I couldn't have admitted that to somebody, that suddenly I was dying in that place. I do my work, I love my work, but I'm not very good at talking about money around my work, because that's not my skill. And I haven't found the right person within our organisation who does that. I will one day, and that's cool. But I thought, no, I'm not going to let this fall apart here. I'm just going to be honest. And that to me is where that integrity, they showed. I want to work with them even more now because of how they responded to what I said to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And years ago, I don't know about the childhood thing, because obviously I've blocked so much of my childhood out, and I don't place any blame anywhere. It was circumstances, and I really don't place blame anywhere. But I then had a manager. And this particular manager he had a lot of stuff going on in his life, you know, and he'd had things happened, and obviously I started after a lot of the things had happened. But he wasn't a very pleasant person to work for. He really wasn't. And he taught me how not to be. So exactly what Jackie was saying, he taught me how not to be. And so when I actually became an area manager in retail, I got to know and he was just the manager of a store who, I don't think he knew anything about any of us, maybe our names. And I did, even in my insecure days, I got to the stage just before I left that I actually turned around and I stood up for myself, that was saying those days. But as an area manager, I got to know every single one of my staff in all my stores, even if they only did 4 hours a week. And I talked to them and I listened to them. And if retail wasn't what they really wanted to do, it's, what are you studying at the moment? What are you looking to do? What would you like to do? And it was an encouragement.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I didn't want to lose any of the staff, because that meant I had to replace them. But
yeah,
I would do my best. And it was quite strange, because some of them were actually quite scared of me. But others of them, it's just like, talk to Sarah. Just talk to Sarah. It's okay to talk to Sarah. But I had, because of my lack of confidence, because I certainly had no confidence at all, in spite of the fact I was really good at what I was doing. I had a very confident walk, and I went round in a suit, in a shirt, in a tie. So it was very definitely that costume that put the confidence across, with a very confident walk. You know, one of the stores said to me, we knew you were coming, we could hear your footsteps. But I cared about all the staff. I was not going to treat the people that worked with me the way I had been treated.
Yeah.
I want to comment on that. And I want to talk. I'm talking to the women in our audience. I'm talking to the women in our audience that are entrepreneurs or that are in corporate or these professional organizations. I mean, every day you go to work and you dress like the man, you put on the man's suit, and you have to meet the man head to head, and you act like the man, and you perpetrate like the man. And I want to say, find your femininity. Find the softer part of yourself. That just because you come in soft does not make you weak.
Mm.
And that I don't have to raise my voice or slam my fist against the table to get other people's attention. That when I command what I have to say, when I have to say it coming from my heart and from a place of understanding, but yet authority, that I can come across just as strong right here, right now, as I'm speaking to you.
Yeah.
Without behaving like the man. And we are being groomed to act like our femininity is weakness, where our femininity is so powerful.
Yeah.
It is extremely powerful. And matter of fact, we are so powerful. That's why it's male dominated, because when that female power meets head to head, it can't be harnessed. It can't be harnessed. So we need to understand that femininity is not weakness. And we possess something more than any man could ever have. We possess the power to gestate ideas, because we're able to gestate children. We have firsthand knowledge on what it is to take an idea, hold on to it, package it, put it together, bring it together, and move it forward, because we know how to our bodies were made to gestate. We know how to gestate. A man can only perceive that. They learn how to do it. And who do they learn it from? They learn from the feminine side, because they don't have the capability of gestation. I'm talking to the women. Please find your femininity and stop repeating your negative experiences onto other people below you, whether it's female or male. Stop it.
Yeah.
We have a bad experience, or we get taken through the ringer, and then we feel that we have to take the next person through the ringer because we were taken through the ringer. And it is so wrong in so many ways and on so many levels.
We're here to
So
break
many.
the cycle. We're here to break the cycle.
To break the cycle, correct. And the patterns. I'll defer because I can keep going and going.
No, you're so incredibly right. You're absolutely right. And I think the every conversation like this takes us a step closer to letting go of the and sadly I think some of it is at a cellular level. You know, I'm of an age where, you know, it wasn't just children should be seen and not heard. It was women should be basically not seen and not heard. And it was funny to give somebody a washing up bowl and a dishcloth for Christmas or their birthday or something like that. You know, it was a joke, but it, you know, it was putting women there. My heart at the same time at the moment in this spell of our lives goes out for men as well. I have to admit it does, because they've been brought up with feeling this was their place. And now it's being shaken up because women are finding their femininity, they are finding their voice, they are finding their courage, and they are speaking their truth. And I look at some of the things that go on in the news and the papers of people when they say that they're speaking their truth, and people ridicule them because it's a bit woo-woo and it's a bit this, that, and the other, and that they're being selfish and they're being this, that, and the other. And I'm like, hang on a minute. No disrespect, but those who have been living with it the way they have wanted it to be for years and felt comfortable with it, do you not feel that you're being selfish by wanting to keep it that way and not allowing people to live their own truth? Somebody who is living and speaking their own truth is not being selfish. They're just saying, please hear me. I will hear and validate you. And if that's the way you want to live, but please, at the same time, do not expect me to live by your standards, your goals, your everything else. Please hear me and accept me for who I am and what I've experienced and what I'm going through to discover more about how I can live my best life. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's inviting the men into those collaborations. You know, yes, it's 3 women here, and I know that we absolutely want to encourage the women to step into their power, you know, to come into themselves. But do you know what? Are men really in their power? They're not. Big boys don't cry. You know, as you said, they've been raised, they've got to be the breadwinner. And of course, that really doesn't work these days, because you've got and you have got the men who are actually the house husbands. Good for you, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I just want to comment really quickly that in telling women to step into their power and that they're powerful and this is how they differentiate from men does not belittle or say, you know, men are this. Because we tend to think that way sometimes, where it's just like, because I'm propping up the men, that means it has to be on top. Propping up the woman, that has to be, you know, at the belittling of the man. And I'm not saying that at all.
It's not a propping up of anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just a matter of saying to people, who are you? Discover who you are. Mm-hmm. Discover your strengths, the things that you love, the things that you're happy with. As a child, what is that cartoon? It's about, if you judge every child and you take all the animals and you've got a fish and you've got a monkey and an elephant, if you judge them all by their ability to climb a tree, the elephant and the fish are going to think they're stupid. And they're not. You were saying earlier, Jackie, about everybody has what they are good at. Their bit that they bring, their piece of the pie that creates the whole.
Yeah.
So we're talking back about the working together, because when we do, that is when we can create the whole. That's when we can bring something together beautifully and come into some positive words perfectly. I'm a great believer, actually, and there's no such thing as perfection. Yes. Yeah. There's no such thing as perfection. It is what it is for each individual.
And perfection's our own interpretation of it.
Yeah.
And I must admit, since I think each of us has our own instruction manual for each and every one of us. And if we can learn our own instruction manual ourselves, then we're able to maybe communicate that to other people. Because actually we're not all the same. We're all unique. We're all individual. And there is that strength in that. And we're all perfect in our own ways. When I talked about men earlier, and I said, my heart goes out to them because it's as much of a change for them. I think you're exactly right, Enolia. It's not about, we're not trying to put anyone above the other. We're trying to, I think it's about leveling the playing field.
Yes.
No matter who you are, it's that leveling that playing field, no matter who you are, no matter what age you are, no matter what color, what religion, what anything, what language you speak, whether you have a disability or you don't have a disability. It's about seeing the person as a whole and accepting them for who they are, and with the things, their struggles as well as their their abilities and everything else, and accepting them for that. Everybody seems to have, I don't know, no, everybody, that's a generalization. In the world that I was brought up in, it was cookie cutter, and if you didn't fit in the cookie cutter, you were cast to one side and made to feel like you were less than, lack of, and all this, that, and the other. And we're not.
We're not. I agree. We are so not. And we all go through our different fields of emotion, and we get angry, or we're happy, or we're sad. I wish people could just see each other as human beings. You know, we are all just one human beings. We're all here. We all need to sleep. We all need to eat. We all have the same basic needs.
Yeah.
And the bottom line is just if we can be kind to our fellow man, if we could collaborate, if we can have integrity with our fellow man, you know, and stop carving out this is mine, you know, kind of thing. If we could just work with each other, meet each other in the middle.
And we
Oh
can't
my
take
God.
any of it with us.
What a world we would be living in, right? What a world.
You just brought it back, Enolia, to that working together, when we can work together. And for some people, some groups of people are going to be right to work together because they speak in that same language, that the type of language, not you know, and they've got the skills that complement each other. And some, those partnerships, those working together are never going to work because they don't.
I know.
And that's equally okay, because as you said, Sarah, earlier when you were talking about relationships and everything else, when you let go of that one, and Enolia, you said it as well, when you let go of that one, you open the door for something better to come in. It's because there is that space for something else. So if something doesn't work, that's okay. Let it go with love and have the doors open enough so that you can let in those new relationships, working together, everything else. And it's just having that faith. But when we try to cling on, or we say something negative about somebody else that we work with and whatever else, we can still repeat a story of an experience that wasn't good. It doesn't mean that within it, the essence that we're sharing with somebody is a negativity. We're sharing the story and what happened, not the negativity about a person, a thing, a happening. We're sharing the experience so that maybe somebody else can get a learning from it. Yeah. Rather than holding that negativity. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Absolutely. Our story, for all of us, it is about being aware of our story and the experiences that we've had. And obviously, when we can get to that stage where we've healed any of the hurt, the pain, the trauma, and obviously it is getting to that point, I can repeat my story and I can almost repeat what happened to me with a smile.
Yeah.
Although it wasn't anything to smile about. But I wouldn't change it for the world, because I wouldn't be where I am now without it. So I love my story. I am very grateful for my story and the experiences I have had. Yeah. Because I am here today on today's conversation with two amazing people, and I wouldn't be here if it hadn't been for what I've been through.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So on that note, I'm going to do a quick time check. Do you know we're coming up on an hour?
I know.
We could talk about this topic forever. I mean, I feel like we're all just getting warmed up too. So, but what I would love to do is just, just any last thoughts or any last words that you would like to say to our audience that's been listening, and just start with Jaki.
Oh, thank you for sharing your time with us, because that is a precious gift. And I want to thank you for being here with us and for listening. And I hope that within something that's been said, it's given you an inner strength or permission to be, or whatever it is, something that's really good for you. Because when we work together, everything can be so much better. It just impacts on everybody. So thank you.
I'd reiterate the courage to listen to what we've said and think, even if it's only little bits from each of us or from one of us, and you think, oh, that resonates, allow yourself to let it resonate and to have the courage to work with that. I suppose what we've been saying is, we are giving you permission to be yourself, to encourage you to work with others for the growth of yourself, them, and for all the lives that you can touch when you do work in a collaboration with others, because you can bring out so much more than if we just all try and do it individually.
And I would just keep it really simple. And I remember this mantra that I always said, there is no I in we. There's no I in we. We work together. We collaborate. We communicate. We are successful. We have the challenges to pick ourselves up. We. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sarah Jane. Thank you, Jackie. We're so grateful to have had you here on today's conversation. And I wanted to share with you that our next today's conversation will be August 13th, 2020, 9 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern time, 12 p.m. Eastern time, 12 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. UK, and I'm in Angola, African time. And we're going to have Chloe Cordero with us. Chloe is from Paris, France, or at least that's where she's living now. I believe she's from Paris, though. And she is going to speak about self-responsibility from powerlessness to sovereignty. So we're excited to have Chloe on. So please do join us for the next today's conversation. Again, Jackie, thank you so much for your expertise and your hearts and your wisdom. And Sarah Jane, I love you, my partner. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. So wherever you are, we wish you well.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Namaste. Bye.
Bye.